What is going on, my Atomic Works friends? Today, we're going to be building a classic vintage style king and queen seat. This here is from one of our customers, and he actually went and built this very beefy seat pan. We usually do like 2 or 3 seats a year for him and his friends. They build bikes every year, cool stuff, and usually they make it out of really thin metal. And I'm always like, can you make it a little thicker? Because what happens is they pull in really easily, they move left to right. So he just went and made this thing pretty beefy. So this is kind of nice. So as long as it fits on the bike and he's happy with it, we could upholster it and it's not going to move. One of the things why I say it's really good for you guys to watch our videos if you're sending in a seat or making a seat or even bring it to another shop is we kind of go over a lot of things. So even though a lot of these videos are longer, we're taking you like step by step through and showing you things that are very important to do. Usually when you make a steel pan, they're thin and sharp, and what we have to do is put like an actual pinch edge molding around it, and that covers it. What he ended up doing is he went around and put an actual metal rod and tacked it in, and it's fairly good. I mean, I don't think we're really gonna have to put that on there. Maybe a couple of these edges, but because it's thick metal, I might be able to round it and keep it. The one thing that scares me is he went through so much detail. I don't want to add anything here because if we add to this, it's going to push the seat forward. What people don't take into consideration when making a seat pan are the littlest thickness on the back of the seat's going to push you forward. So if you watch some of our previous videos, a lot of times what we'll say is to put like 7 or 8 layers of duct tape. Well, first you put down a blue tape from like Home Depot or Lowe's, the painter's tape that doesn't really stick. You put that down, then you put like 6 or 8 layers of duct tape on top of it. That'll give you pretty much the thickness of a material. And what it ends up doing is people don't realize it, but by adding the material to the back of this, if it adds 1/8 of an inch, that radius actually pushes your seat forward. So a lot of times if you have tabs or buttons, like see this one has these actually pins that slip in. So if we move this seat forward 1/8 of an inch and these are actually form fitted, they're not gonna fit. Same thing with height wise. If we put it under the seat and it lifts the seat up, it can create gaps or change it. So now if this sissy bar goes up and around here and it's form fitted and we go up, it's not gonna fit in. So there's a lot of things to factor in, and it's very important to watch our videos, learn all these different steps, so when you make your seat and build it, you do it right the first time. I'm gonna be jumping ahead, because I wanna spend more time in this video making the seat pattern and doing that, but through each stage, we'll go over it. So on this seat, we ended up doing a rebond foam, a firm foam. He only wants 1 inch thick foam. So if you use a soft foam, you're just gonna bottom right out and go onto the steel pan, which is not comfortable. And if you use one too hard, like a neoprene, it's just hard right out of the gate and it's not a good ride. So we found that the rebonded foam in a firm feel is actually the best because it doesn't break down and it still has a little bit of softness to it. You will notice I did not paint this, right? So what happens is if you paint a seat pan and you put our glue on it, our glue actually eats through it and makes a mess. If you powder coat it, usually powder coat's fine unless it's a really crappy powder coat job. So when someone brings in a steel pan, we're actually, a lot of times we don't paint it. We'll actually, the glue itself kind of laminates over it with the foam. And then on the bottom, it's the same thing. The glue laminates on the foam. A lot of seats that we've taken apart from the 70s weren't painted. They were just steel and the glue actually kind of locks it in. It would be nice to have them powder coated and never have to worry about them rusting and all that type of stuff, but it's not a necessity. And it also depends on what you want to spend on a seat. So some of these seats we might take Landau foam and like hand carve it and sculpt it and make it like absolutely perfect before we go into put a cover on it. But a lot of people do not want to spend, you know, over $1,000 or thousands of dollars on a motorcycle seat, but they want a nice look. So this one here is one of those ones where it's going to be a very nice looking seat and it's not going to be a high dollar seat. So we're doing this foam here. I'm going to grind it up really quick, clean everything up, and then put it in we'll probably put a so foam on the sides of it, but not on top because we're going to be doing our actual traditional roll and pleat through here. Good morning. It's a new day for me, bright and early. That's why I'm all still sleepy. I want to take a nap again. I wanted to go over this before we move to the patterning, which is what I wanted this video to be more about. And what I ended up doing, I just threw some 1/4 inch so foam around the edges just to kind of protect the edges and just clean it up a little bit. And then I wanted to show you, so after we snapped our line on the middle, what ended up happening is based off the sides of the seat pan, from the center line to the outside of one side was, where's the seam? Was right here, right? So one side had the 2 inches or whatever this is, and this side only had about an inch. So what I ended up doing is had to add a little over 3/4 of an inch of foam to this side here to make it look symmetrical. Some of the challenges you face are, now that we have this symmetrical, the pan itself really might not be that symmetrical. This one's not that far off, so it's good. But when I sight up a seat, I stand here where you are, look down and use my peripheral vision, and I look from this tip to the edge of the seat pan, and that drives me crazy if that's off. So to correct that, sometimes you have to add more to the side of the seat pan itself with foam, which when you don't have the bike here or you didn't make the seat pan, you really don't want to take that chance of widening this and then having it not fit on the bike. So on this one, we're going to make the top completely symmetrical. We're going to keep it cut off on the side pans. And now for the fun part, we're going to start the seat pattern. Oh, before we do that, one thing I wanted to say is you'll notice we're going to get some different camera angles. I'm trying to figure this out. So I'm going back to the way we used to have the shop set up. So if you look at our videos from like 3 or 4 years ago where we had a completely different setup, it was way more productive for me to do that. We made some bad business decisions and brought people in and tried to do extra work. And what it ends up doing is this gets you too busy. And there's too many people these days that don't have any idea what they're doing. And we changed the shop to better suit them so that they could do their jobs. And in retrospect, it stopped me from doing my job, which is to do this stuff productively, get it done and get it out. So I'm trying to go back, but the problem is the way that's good for me is not conducive to you. I like to have light over me, but the camera doesn't like the light over me. It likes the light behind the camera. So some of the videos that we've been shooting look great for you or decent for you guys, horrible for me because I'm actually in the dark. So when I'm on this side, the light's coming this way, everything's dark. And I'm getting older, my eyes are going, so I need to make sure that there's light on both sides. So I'm going to temporarily set it up the way we're setting it up, and then we're going to make some actual custom enclosures for us to actually work out of that will be well lit, and hopefully we can make it so that the camera could go in there. Because what sucks is like when you're gluing, you want to glue like this. So you have a backdrop here that the glue goes on. Well, ideally I want the camera over there facing us, but I don't want to put glue on the camera. I guess we could put it up higher, which might be an option looking down on us. So we'll try some different stuff, and you guys could just write in the description and let me know what you like, what you don't like. I know one guy had came in here and said that he sees a lot of our videos and they're very whitewashed. And the reason is because the lighting's so bad, sometimes we adjust the contrast and then that brings up the white pigment, or the white, not pigment, with the white background or highlights. And then that actually makes it too bright. So we're trying to learn here. We're seat guys, we're not, and car guys and bike guys, we're not camera guys. So we're trying to learn here. Anybody who does this maybe for a living, please, put a comment in there and say, hey, I recommend using this light or setting the camera up this way. We could use all the help we can. Going through and making a sample here, a test sample before we do this. So you hear me in the past talk about traditional style pleats and top stitch pleats and modern pleats and all that. And I'm going to show you a couple. There's a bunch of ways to do a traditional style pleat. So a lot of times you'll take and mark your pleats on here, and what you end up doing is you'll stitch a line, you'll take your next line, you'll fold it, you'll stitch down it, you go to your next line, fold it and stitch down it. I'm going to do this one a little different because I want it to be a little more consistent, and the reason I'm doing it this way is because this is a long seat. There's a possibility we didn't order a lot of material, and so one of the reasons you'll see a lot of people don't do traditional stitch, traditional roll and pleat, you end up using a lot more material than you normally would, like almost double what you would normally use. And also the labor, it's so much more involved to do it this way. So that's why a lot of people use the top stitch pleats now. And 20 years ago when we would do it, it wasn't such a big deal. Our overhead was a lot lower. Our hourly labor rate was a lot lower, and materials were a lot lower. So we're able to do that stuff. And I never thought in the upholstery business we'd be in a position where you have to say, oh, if you want a traditional roll and pleat, it's going to cost you 4 times what the seat is normally going to cost you. So it's kind of crazy. So what I'm doing is I just went and did 1 3/4 inches, and I'm putting lines there, right? Those lines are going to be where I'm going to stitch down from. And I'm actually, one of the reasons why I like working by myself is stuff like this drives me crazy. So you heard me say it before, our squares that I'm using, I like to use the aluminum ones for upholstery because they're lightweight, easy to move around, they don't drag the material. I go over to grab a square, and there's 5 steel squares upstairs where we do our upholstery, 0 aluminum ones. So it's just the constant insanity of working with people sometimes it's overwhelming. It just ruins your productivity, and it gets tiring. It's like years ago, we never had to repeat ourselves so many times with people. You know, I don't know, and I say it's a younger generation, but it's not the younger generation. It's just everybody nowadays has this mental block where they just can't think. They can't clean up after themselves. They can't listen to the littlest things, and it makes work so much more difficult. I'm just going to stitch down this here. We'll make our first stitch here. Right. I'm going to go to this one. Bada boom. I'm going to stitch down. Take this off. Now we're just going to take this material, pull it back here. So this is the easier way to do this, but it's still time consuming. And what this is going to do is show us exactly how big our pleats are going to be from stitch to stitch. Because I like to make sure that our pleats look good on the seat. You know, some people will just use a generic thing and use it on all their seats, but every seat's different. Some seats are bigger, some seats are smaller. So this, we started off with 1 3/4. Now I'm going to do this next line. I think, I don't like this. I think for this seat it's going to be too small. So if you look here, 1 3/4 is making these pleats. I don't have my ruler, but anyways, they're pretty small. So I'm going to actually do this a little bigger, and we're going to try it differently. Okay, so the 1 3/4 brings you to a 1-inch pleat, which I'm not really, I think it's going to be too small. I have to do it on the seat and then see if I like it or not. And I just have this feeling on this seat it's going to be too many, too busy. So we're going to do this one here. There, I'll do one more, because I think this is what I want. If you look at the overall size of this seat, it's a pretty large seat. So if we were to do 1-inch pleats, you figure every inch, there's going to be a lot of pleats. And if this is a small Bates style custom vintage seat, I think that would go well. This here is going to be our ticket. I'm going to do these here. It'll be enough where it fills this in and looks proportionate. If I went bigger, I think it'd be too much, and I obviously don't like smaller. So we're going to go through and do that. Now, one of the things you got to be careful with is when you're doing traditional pleats like this, they're not glued down. So when you go up around an area like this, you could have a tendency of the pleats to want to pucker. So you want to really make sure your pattern is really tight, because you don't want to have bubbles in there. So if this is tight and pulled good, you'll have a nice pleat in there. And then once we sew the sides, you see how it starts to give a nice pronounced roll and pleat. I just wanted to show you. So I cut 2 pieces out, one for the front and one for the back. So you can see, to do this back piece, I did it a little long, but not much. So if you look at it, when we sew this together, this is pretty much what it's going to take, close to it. I mean, I did do it a little extra, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this now, I'm going to sew it to the sew foam, and then we're going to test fit it. So we're going to do this piece, then I want to see how much we have to do in the next piece here. What I did is I didn't want to make this all huge like this, because to fit the widest part, it seems crazy. So I just did the back part narrower, I did the front part, and then we're just going to make a little connector in the middle. You can see here, now this piece, remember how long this was? Here's the top, here's the bottom. We basically, from where I wanted it, we're going to have maybe 2.5 pleats longer, where we had it all that way. I thought I cut off the foam, oh, right here. So this is how much extra this piece was that it shrunk down, literally. So that's quite a bit, right? Same thing with the front. This was like really long. Now it goes from here to here. So what I have to do is just make a piece that's going to connect these two, and then we are golden. One thing I don't remember showing you is I connected these 3 pieces together, and what I did is I measured the width of them, but to make sure that everything's centered, I actually snapped the center line and made sure that when I sewed the 3 pieces together, they were centered, so everything is perfectly straight. Now I'm going through and I'm pinning the seat cover on here. I want to make sure that it's tight, not super tight, but not loose at all. And I want to make sure that it's hugging the shape of the seat really good. And with it pinned in the center, now I can go through and I'm going to, even though we've tried to make it symmetrical foaming it, and we tried to make it symmetrical sewing it, we're going to mark our pattern on here, or mark one side down, and we're going to transfer it to the other side to make sure it's symmetrical, so that when we put the cover on, it looks good. One thing we're not doing on this one is, I really like these seats with welting on it, or you call it piping. It firms them up and it gives it a nice look. I do agree that on a really low profile seat with that piping on, or the welting on there, it actually digs into your legs a little bit and sometimes prematurely wears. So I understand why people don't like it. All the seats we do for this gentleman, we do not put welting on it. He actually likes the top stitch. It reminds him of an old Bait style seat. And I get that. It looks like that. When I see it, it gives it a vintage look. There's certain things I don't like about that style because when you sew it, it kind of has like the edge doesn't look nice and crisp and tight. Now, while the seat was pinned up, I went through and marked the edge where I wanted it from the backside. Now you can't, a lot of times you'll just flip the seat over and measure it and you can snap a line. Because these seats are so long and you see how wobbly they want to get, I'm not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to flip it over, and because we already made our center line all the way down the middle of this thing, what I am going to do is from this side, start measuring seam to seam. So 4.5 plus 4.5 is 9. So we know that that goes there, right? We got, this is also 4.5, so we got 9. We're just gonna go through and measure this all the way down. 2 plus 2 is 4, right? 2 1/4 and 2 1/4 is 4.5. So I'm just gonna do that all the way down this thing. I just went through and made this all symmetrical, and I tell you what, these ones are so challenging because it plays this mind game on you, because when they get skinny and long and they're pleated, they have a tendency to waddle around a little bit. So I just went through and measured everything, and now I'm going to stitch it. And one thing, you have to really follow your measurements on these, because sometimes your eyes will play games on you based on how this thing's laying out. So if I follow my measurements, and now I'll stitch this top and trim it, when we stitch everything together, it'll be symmetrical. All right, so because this is a big piece, what I ended up doing is I took some scrap material and I just made a pattern of one side, and I flipped it over to see if it was a mirror image, and it's actually pretty close. So this pattern's good. I have all my marks on it. Now I'm just going to transfer that to the white vinyl, and we're going to start stitching this thing together. All right, so here's another thing too. So I'm putting a French seam at the top of the seat. It's nice sometimes not to have any seams there, but if you look at the amount of material, you probably waste 2 yards, 2.5 yards. So it really adds to the overall cost of the seat. So that's another way that we're able to save a little bit for the customers when they're not looking to spend a fortune. I'm just going to put this little French seam on here. And I am going to do a real French seam, just because this is at the top of the seat and I don't want it to peel apart. So the difference between a cosmetic French seam and a real French seam is a real French seam actually has a piece of material behind it. It's usually like a thin scrim material, and I'll show you. We're going to do it right here. So what you end up doing is we spread our salvage apart, open, right? We have our other material underneath here. They have nice machines that do this one shot. They actually put the tape underneath it and sew it, but we're just using a regular machine right now. So now we're going to go through and do our one side of our French seam, and we'll do the other side. Why this is messed up here. Actually, I'm going to, for some reason this thread is a little messed up, so I'm actually going to fix this. First, this thread was fraying. It just doesn't look right, and we don't want it to not look right. Okay, so now we have a nice little French seam, and we ran out of bobbin thread right at the last moment, it looked like. That was pretty close. Yep, look at that. Perfect timing. And this one's ready to go. Bada boom. All right, so I'm going to trim this when we're here. Trim it really nice and close because we don't want to see any of this. Just trimming this because I want to make sure that when we put the cover on, it actually, you don't see any of the edges of the French seam. All right, so now I'm going to actually start from the center, work my way out, which, as I've said a million times, is not the right way to do it. It's just the way I do it. Anybody could do it differently. We do have all our marks on here that we have to follow, but even with that, I just personally find it's nice to start from the center and work your way out. That's another thing that's great about this business, is there's so many different ways people do things, and there's no really right way or wrong way. I do get, we get the people who chime in that know everything, and you have to do it this way. This is the way you have to do it. And you're like, oh boy, those are the people that probably never make it in this business or any business. They're so regimented. Although I guess I shouldn't say that, because there's some people that are very regimented and they do nice work. It's just they don't deviate. So they never do anything creative. So I'm just looking as we're going here, because when you're dealing with pleats, it's very easy to stretch. And I always tell you when we're sewing, never to stretch anything. But sometimes with the pleats, you kind of have to make sure that they're open and where you want them. It's really tough, because I want our lines to line up. You don't want to stretch the top one, and you don't want to overstretch it, but you want to make sure that your markings are all lined up and your pleats are nice and laid out in the way they are. It's very easy to push these in and sew them and almost have like some smaller and bigger. So there's a little bit of a challenge to these sometimes, and so far we're doing pretty good. Put a lot of marks in here, but I should have put more. Some of these long seats are the ones you really can't wait to have done and together, because it gets overwhelming when you get a lot of stuff on here. So we're going to go around a corner, and corners are tough, so we want to really make sure that we're going to come around here and be lined up, which it looks like we're going to be right on the money. So wherever these things curve, wherever you come down to a sharp point, that's really important to make sure the left or right side are actually in the same position, because that could make your seat look very cockeyed, and you don't want that. Nobody wants a cockeyed seat. That's actually right on the money. So far we're doing good. A lot of times we'll do a lot of marks around corners. So it's very easy to stretch the top or bottom accidentally without paying attention and have them not line up. The cover is all sewn up, and now it's time to tell the truth. Dun dun dun. Is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Push this inside out, right there. Bada boom. That looks all right. This looks all right. Big thing I want to look at is, which I can't show you at the same time, is everything going to be straight? That's the key. And it looks pretty good. Kind of think I should have probably made these pleats a tiny bit smaller, like maybe an eighth smaller, but we'll see in a second. Let's put this thing together. All right, so there you have it. We just kind of rushed through this a little bit. Well, I rushed through the video, not through the seat. So we're going to be doing a bunch of bike seats. Some of the videos are going to suck just because it's more important for me to spend time on the seats than it is to do the videos right now. The videos are important to me. I love that you guys watch these things, but the quality of our work and doing right by our customer is more important. So I appreciate you guys watching these. So this here, obviously we did the King Queen seat here. It's not a super expensive seat like we normally do, but it's actually a really cool seat, and it's nice. These things look great on the bike. And what's funny is, you know, I say how I like the piping or the welting around here, because it crisps up the seat and it makes you don't see any bumps on the edges here. And this is the type of stuff that I'm not really a fan of. And if you trim it and stuff, sometimes you can make it a little better. I did trim it, and you still see it going around the corners, even though we cut the salvage and did some reliefs on it, you still see that. And what's funny about it is, even though I like the welting appearance-wise better for professionalism, whenever I do these seats, it just takes me back. I remember my dad's choppers. It looks like the seats that were on the bikes, and it gives you that feeling that you just can't, like, I don't know. That's, to me, that's what life is about. Just remembering, having feelings, emotions, and caring about stuff. And it brings you back. And I think that's a cool thing. One thing I was also thinking is really funny is there's only two types of bikers, right? Ones who like when people call them dirtbag bikers, and ones who are completely offended by it. And it pretty much narrows down every motorcyclist I know. This one here, I think Richie actually likes being called a dirtbag biker. He likes the old school, just that feel, and it's just, there's so much personality in it. So please, if you like our videos, oh, actually, hold on. I want to show you something. Let me grab the camera here. So make sure to, if you want to see a couple more videos, we did this seat a few years back. This customer actually had a totally different motorcycle. And obviously this seat does not go with this bike. So he actually has some cool material, and we are gonna rewrap it, and you'll get to see what you think, if you like it or not. We're also doing both backrests and both helmets. So again, thank you for watching. Please remember, like, share, follow, subscribe, comment. Good, bad, make some comments. Tell us what you think. Thank you.